start out. Thank you all so much for inviting us to come and talk with you and for everybody in attendance. My name is Kat. I am the volunteer and intern coordinator with Washington County District Attorney's Office Victims Assistance Program, and I'm joined by my coworker, Mackenzie. Mackenzie, you want to say hello?
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Frank, and I am an advocate at the District Attorney's Office.
So I am going to try and share my screen with you all so that you can join us as we talk to you a little bit about Criminal Justice 101, an introduction to victims assistance, and the work that we do as part of the criminal justice system. So I hope that you all have the ability to see my screen. I was telling them earlier, I work in Teams. I don't do Zoom very often, so apologize for the fumbling around as I get going. So we, again, are just going to talk with you about criminal justice. We are going to give you just a very brief background of the overview of the criminal justice system so that we can talk with you about where we fit into the criminal justice system. So we're going to talk about our career trajectories between me and Mackenzie and just kind of give you some information about what we've gone through to get to the place where we are at in our professional roles and some of the work that we have put in going through those different processes. And then we're going to talk with you about some of the different types of criminal justice backgrounds that you could interact with. We're going to save who we are as victim advocates until the end, but we're going to highlight all the different places that we interact with different professions, criminal justice professions, in the role that we play. And then we're going to talk with you about specifically what it means to be a victim advocate and what it might look like to provide some volunteerism with our office. So I'm going to take a second to introduce myself first and just say again, hi, I'm Kat. And one of the reasons that you're talking with me today is because I am an individual who works in the criminal justice system. I graduated from high school with a trajectory and an interest in psychology and wanted to know kind of what it looked like to work with individuals who have been affected by trauma. And so I went and gathered my 4-year degree at Ohio University. I'm a Midwest human, a transplant to this area. And throughout my 4-year degree, there were a couple different opportunities where I got to work inside the field and get to see what it looks like to be an advocate or to be a social worker. So my chosen background was social work and psychology, and I had a 6-month internship. I had a year-long internship to really get to understand that where I fit into the field was working with individuals affected by domestic violence and sexual violence, intimate partner violence. So the past 20 years of my career, I have spent working with individuals affected by trauma, trying to navigate the healing process, and now specifically inside the criminal justice process. So I've worked over my career working in primary, secondary, and tertiary intervention. So starting with teaching people what healthy relationships look like and defining what consent looks like so that we can have a lack of violence occurring within the community, and then working in secondary and tertiary prevention, providing support to individuals who've been affected by crime and affected by violence. And the last 15 years of my career or so have been specific to the criminal justice system, working both within medical and within law enforcement-based systems, and now based within the district attorney's office. And I truly love the opportunity to go out and train people and to talk with people about what I do and what it means to be an advocate and help to kind of expand what the community's knowledge is. Now, just a different view of who I am and the different things that I have put into being who I am. So in blue, you can see all of the different ways that I have supplemented my education and the different aspects of who I am that have led to that kind of white outside of who I am in my professional career at this point. I'm going to pass off to Mackenzie.
So my name is Mackenzie. I am born and raised in this community. I actually went to Hillsborough High School and I graduated in class of 2014. I then ended up pursuing a Bachelor's of Science at University of Oregon, where I graduated with a general social science degree, and my concentration was crime, law, and society. Graduated back in 2018. And then I ended up starting my journey as a mentor for at-risk youth with the juvenile department for Washington County, and that's sort of where I learned that my interest in true crime, my interest in the criminal justice system, as well as my interest in helping people kind of flourished and developed right there. And from there, I just started kind of seeking opportunities that allowed me to get paid for those types of things, which I thought is so cool, something I'm so passionate about that I also can make a living off of as, can very blessed for that. So, anyways, one thing kind of led to the other. I ended up building up my resume, landed a job with the advocacy program at the district attorney's office, and that's where I'm at today. So, next. Okay, so similar with CAD, I mean, here's a bunch of different things in blue that kind of led me to gaining the white experience. But this is who I am. I think Kat summed it up pretty good, so my part's a little bit quicker.
Awesome. So we just want to talk with you a little bit about who we are, because we know that kind of where you're at in your trajectory is making choices about what comes next and gaining some real understanding of how you want to employ some of the skills that you have earned up until this point. And so we want to kind of focus on what it looks like to think about you and to think about what it's going to look like to utilize the skills that you have in the way that you might start to plan what your next steps look like for internship, for going away to school, if that's an opportunity, or for how to practically become involved with the systems that we have. So again, we are going to do a very quick overview of the criminal justice system and talk about the differences between the civil court system and the criminal court system and focus on kind of what we do in the criminal court system. We're going to focus a little bit more broadly on the different roles of the individuals we work with in the criminal justice system. So we as advocates, there are a bunch of different ways that you can be an advocate for individuals experiencing crime, whether it's a systems-based advocate or a community advocate. We're lucky enough to have the opportunity then to interact with a whole bunch of other professions in the criminal justice system while we help people to navigate and to learn about the system. So we're going to talk a little bit about our different ways that we interact with criminal justice system professionals. And then we're going to spend a majority of the time focusing at the end on who we are and what the district attorney's office does, what the victims assistance program does. And we are hopeful that throughout our presentation that you all will interact, because you don't just want to hear from us. We want to hear from you what interests you. We want to hear what you want to hear about. So please, as we go along, I don't know how to monitor the chat, but I would love if somebody tells me when we have questions, or please feel free to speak up if you have things that you want to say as we go along.
We can monitor the chat
That would
if
be
you
very
would
lovely.
like. Yeah. Okay.
I appreciate that. Up until a second ago, had things in front of me where I could see and they disappeared. So I have learned through technology that I never know what I am doing, and it is always helpful to have somebody else helping. All right. So oops. Would love to start, Mackenzie, if you don't mind. I'm going to start the conversation about the criminal justice overview, and then I would love for you to help me out with talking about some of the professions. So just very, very briefly, talking about the differences between the civil system and the criminal system. So we at the district attorney's office are based in the criminal system. We work with individuals who are also navigating the civil system, but the job that we do as advocates is helping individuals to navigate the criminal justice system. And there are differences between the two systems that we want to make sure we highlight, but we don't want to focus a lot of our time on. So just understanding that the criminal system is the two parties that are involved are the government versus a private defendant. So in a civil case, it is two civil litigants, a plaintiff or a defendant, a individual who is petitioning the court, and an individual who's responding to the court. In our criminal system, it is the government and a private defendant that are going through the process. So the District Attorney's Office represents the government. We are the state that is taking a case and going against a private defendant that has committed a crime. The standard of proof that we are responsible for is beyond a reasonable doubt. And so when you hear that we have a criminal case that has started, when our office is considering that, we are considering whether we believe that we have the ability to prove that this crime has occurred beyond a reasonable doubt. And we have to think of the community members at large and what the community members, who are our jurors, are going to be able to understand and be able to prove. In our criminal cases, the burden rests with the government, and so it is that the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. It is not that the defendant has to prove anything. Defendants are considered to be not guilty until they are proven guilty. So in our criminal system, the burden rests with the state, which is represented by the District Attorney's Office. Some of the different crimes that we are working with. In our office, we work with everyone. We, through the Victims Assistance Unit, work with every single victim of crime that occurs. So if you think on the flip side of that, every defendant going through the criminal justice system. So everything from petty crimes all the way up through interpersonal, domestic violence, sexual assault, homicide cases. And when we are talking about the criminal justice system, the penalties that we are looking at are anything from probationary time, community corrections time, fines, incarceration. So slightly different than civil court, where there may be things like injunctions or restraining orders that are granted or not granted as part of the civil court process. So, Mackenzie, I see that you bounced on and bounced off a little, so just to catch you up, I'm just kind of going through some of the criminal justice system, and then I'm hopeful that you will help to have a conversation about the specific roles of the criminal justice process. So,
You got it. Yep.
so again, we are part of the criminal system, and the criminal system is broken into kind of 4 different sections. And so where we fit into the criminal system is at the circuit court level. So we have municipal courts, we have circuit courts, we have appeals courts, and we have the Supreme Court based in the Oregon State Criminal Justice System. Municipal courts are kind of city courts. They're based in our larger municipalities like Beaverton, Cornelius, Hillsborough, King City, and Tualatin. They handle things like parking tickets and jaywalking and lower level misdemeanor crimes. Our section of the criminal justice system is the circuit court. We in Washington County are part of the 20th district, and the circuit court handles everything from civil court litigation to criminal court litigation, conservatorship. There is a juvenile section, so lots of different sections of the circuit court. We are based in the criminal section of the circuit court. And then just so that you have the full understanding of the 4 different sections, there is an appeals court and there is the Supreme Court. Every single case that goes through the criminal court that isn't a agreed upon outcome, agreed upon plea, has the ability to ask for appeal and to have the case reviewed. So our appeals court looks at every single criminal court case that comes through on appeal. They look to make sure that everything was done properly and that there are not errors that have occurred along the way that would then bring it back to the criminal court for re-adjudication or for the ability to have another look at that case. And then we have the Supreme Court, and it is the highest court in Oregon. It is where our laws are created, and it is the body that hands down legislation that helps us to have statutes and enact our laws. Questions or concerns that we have so far? Cool. So that is the very, very brief, very quick 5-minute version of our look at the criminal justice system, just so that you can know that we fit into the criminal system, we fit into the circuit court system, so that we can start talking about all the different players and all the different ways that we interact with people. So Mackenzie, would you like to talk with me about what a typical day looks like for you interacting with different individuals in the criminal justice system?
Sure. So each advocate in our office is assigned to a specific deputy district attorney. So just to give you an idea, for me as an example, I am assigned to 4 deputy district attorneys. I have 1 misdemeanor attorney, and then I have 3 felony attorneys. So all of the cases that those individuals get, I am the advocate on. So those cases can range from a theft at 7-Eleven all the way up to the highest degree of a crime. Every single day we have what's called an arraignment spreadsheet, which means that somebody was just arrested, typically the previous night before, and has the right to go in front of a judge for their arraignment hearing, which commonly also turns into a release hearing nowadays. So with that being said, that's kind of where the start of contact comes with victims in a new case is at the arraignment hearing. It's their right to be notified of everything that's going on with the criminal justice system. It's their right to be present, and it's their right to be heard for release hearing and sentencing hearings. Therefore, because an arraignment hearing has so commonly turned into release hearings, that would be a critical stage in the process for a victim to be able to attend. So throughout that point, after the arraignment hearing, it's up to the victim how involved they want to be within the criminal justice system. So they can be as involved as they want, which could look like me notifying victims. Again, they could attend those hearings, or they could take a more backseat approach and say, hey, I'm not really interested in much notification. Maybe I just want to request restitution or something like that. And restitution being any monetary loss that they have acquired due to this crime. Again, their car being stolen, something being damaged, maybe they had to seek medical, things of that sort. So every day, my contact with victims looks like maybe on the phone, maybe sending a letter, email is a big one, just things of that sort, but just making sure that their rights are upheld within the criminal justice system in the same way that defendants have rights, and us as humans have rights. Victims also have rights in this system. Did I answer that, Kat, or is there anything else that you wanted me to expand on?
Nope, I think that is great, and we're going to get a whole lot more into it. So just to give kind of a brief understanding of the role of an advocate and kind of where we start the process. And when we interact with individuals who have experienced victimization of crime, it is often that there are a whole lot of different systems that are being introduced to their world at one time. And so we are approaching and we're providing information from our systems-based advocate perspective of, I just want to make sure that you are aware of the rights that you have. And I want to make sure that you understand that we have court dates that are going to be set and helping them to be informed of what that process looks like. And at the same time that we're in contact with them, it's possible that they also have law enforcement that is in contact with them. Do they want to make supplemental reports? Do they want to, are there needs from the initial crime that occurred that they want follow-up with? They're also possibly interacting with like Children's Services or Department of Health and Human Services and trying to navigate what that system looks like. There's the possibility that they are trying to find safe housing and they are at the point of going into emergency shelter or trying to figure out what it looks like to figure out where rent is going to come from for the next month. And so we are just one very small portion of this kind of new world that people are juggling. And we get the opportunity as advocates to learn a whole lot about what different systems look like so that we have the ability to not only play our role as the victim advocate and say, you have the right to, you have the ability to, this is how you engage with the system, but that we also help to talk with them about, like, I heard you say that there was an injury that occurred and that you haven't had medical services. And have you thought about what it looks like to reach out to do follow-up services? And has anybody talked with you? I see that maybe you're concerned about going to get medical care because you don't have the ability to pay for those bills that are then going to start coming in. And you didn't expect this crime to happen, but there are resources that we can help connect you to so that you don't have to pay for those bills. And that then we can in the future make them the responsibility of the defendant when we have the ability to fully adjudicate this case. So our job is to be a portion of the system while being incredibly knowledgeable about all of the different ways that people are going to be impacted by the system. So can you talk about possibly some of the different entities, some of the like probation and parole, or the different places that you help connect people? What are some of the different ways that you connect?
So when I have a case that is open and active, which means a defendant is still innocent until proven guilty, it's one of our constitutional rights, that I am providing the victim with various resources that they may need or have requested during this time, which could look like maybe connecting them with a community-based advocate, which is similar to my role, but the big fundamental difference between me and a community-based is that a community-based advocate does not have to abide by mandatory reporting. So anything that you say to a community-based advocate is confidential information, whereas anything that's reported to me is not confidential. And I'm a mandatory reporter. So every information that I get, I have to turn over to the prosecuting attorney that then needs to be discovered to the defense attorney. So I'm not the one to tell information to, or, notify of a crime being committed or things of that sort, especially if you're not wanting that to be turned over. So getting them connected with community-based advocates if they're wanting somebody to kind of have a soundboard, connecting them with counseling, connecting them with maybe we have emergency funding. If somebody's at risk of losing their home or being evicted, we have referrals and just different resources in place that can be of assistance to individuals who are going through this criminal justice system, as well as just how to best support them during this time. And let's see. So that's when the case is open. There's so many resources in that way. But, and Kat, you might even be able to touch on this a little bit more, but I'm thinking like all the resources that we can provide, and there's so many. But also that victims have rights to restitution. So again, I mentioned this earlier, the monetary loss. So kind of getting those things, kind of explaining, here's what we would need as far as documentation goes, just things of that nature. We also have a restitution specialist assigned to each case, which means that they're the ones that are pros on the monetary values of things, what can be requested, what can't be requested, things of that sort. I see a question on here and it looks like there is low income housing as well, right? Yes, absolutely. There's low income housing. There's various different like community connect resources that we can link victims to. So while I'm a little bit hands off, hands on, as far as I can hear what, somebody's asking for. This is what I'm needing housing. I can then think of, well, I've got a couple different places that I think that you can reach out to and connect with. Whether that's, here's an email, here's a phone number, I've already contacted somebody, here's an urgent referral, anything of that sort. For instance, Family Justice Center is local. And I can refer a victim over there who has community-based advocates who are confidential, informants. They don't have to say anything or repeat anything. They can also provide assistance with food, shelter, childcare, protection orders. If somebody wants to file, say, like a restraining order or a stalking order or something of that sort. So that would be maybe an avenue that I might refer victims to. And then when the case is, and then anything that is like new information, if somebody says, well, this guy's been still contacting me, that's where I go, well, I don't want to hear this. This could compromise myself as, my role as your advocate and put me in a witness position. So then I would say, I encourage you to contact law enforcement and report all new information to them. That would be the appropriate avenue, is law enforcement first. Law enforcement writes a report and then sends it to our office for review. And then that's when we start getting involved. So any type of reporting or additional information or anything that comes to mind would be directed to law enforcement. And then if victims are wanting to be heard, so through like a victim's impact statement, which I said earlier, they can provide at release hearings and sentencing hearings, then they would assist them in writing up an impact statement that is going to be addressed to the judge, not necessarily the defendant himself. And then when the case has been resolved in some fashion, whether the defendant accepts a plea deal or whether he's found guilty at trial, he may be placed on probation. And if our office can continue to notify victims if they invoke their rights for probation violation notifications, and that could look like really anything that's against their probation conditions. So, they have to obey all laws. They cannot leave the state of Oregon without permission from their probation officer, just various things of that sort. Then our office still keeps them notified. However, anything as far as like if they're wanting contact with the defendant after the case has already been closed, then I would refer them to the probation and parole office to request some form of contact, because that would end up ultimately being up to the probation and parole officers. Did I miss anything, Kat?
Nope, I think that's lovely. And just to kind of touch on the understanding that you don't have to know how you want to interact with the criminal justice system at the juncture of working with our office through an internship or volunteerism. So it could be that you come in not quite sure if you want to work on victim side or if you want to work on defendant side of the law, and that is absolutely understandable. There is opportunity through our office. We don't work regularly with the defense, but you do have the opportunity to get to be in a courtroom and get to view what it looks like. And we do connect with defense attorneys occasionally, and you have the ability to kind of see from all of the different perspectives, but just keeping in mind that through our office, we are victim centered and that the state is usually overseeing and representing a viewpoint of the victimology that has occurred. All right, so moving on to just more specifically, some of the different team members that we work with day to day. And I think Mackenzie kind of focused on and talked a little bit about the different advocacy partners that we have, but just keeping in mind that there are advocates at every single level. So community-based was one of the ones that you talked about, our office being systems-based, where we are located. We have law enforcement that has systems-based advocacy as well. So there are advocates that go out to the crime scene when there's a crime that occurs. They help individuals. So after law enforcement has cleared that crime, the advocates are there to make sure that victims are noticed of their rights initially, help them to connect at that point in time of emergency trauma to the resources that they need. And then we're kind of the next step in the systematic process, and that the law enforcement officers will turn the information over to the state. The state will review that information and make a decision if we're going to charge that. And then we will have advocates through our office that are connected to that individual. And then after final adjudication, when we get through the entire process, there are post-adjudication advocates that we would then turn the case over to. So if a victim wants to continue to be notified, there are people within our probation and parole teams and through community corrections. So from the moment of victimization through the outcome of healing, there is always the ability to have an advocate working with you and the ability to connect and know what your rights are. And other parts of the system that we connect with every single day, we are in courtrooms. We are helping people to have a support system as they are navigating the process. And so we are physically walking them into a judge's courtroom. We are talking to the court staff on their behalf and connecting with the court staff to let them know what kind of rights they want to enact. Every day we work with deputy district attorneys. And so we work in the district attorney's office, but within the district attorney's office, we have multiple different roles. So we have our deputy district attorneys, who are the individuals who kind of represent the state and are responsible for prosecution of the crime. They happen at felony and misdemeanor levels. And we have a whole other slide that we're going to get into in a minute that talks more about this, but just to kind of highlight on it. We have some paralegals and we have law clerks that work with our office. And those are the individuals who help to prepare our deputy district attorneys to be functional in court. So they're the people who do research about case law and make sure that they are prepared with all of the discovery that they have and make sure that it's been turned over to the defense. So the people who are physically preparing and making people ready. We also have our legal specialists, and that can be everybody from our reception staff through the individuals who send out subpoenas, the individuals who prepare all of our dockets for making sure we are prepared for court. They are responsible for making sure that we are functional in our courtrooms as well. We have a child support enforcement office. That is individuals who help people who are trying to collect child support to go through the process. It is a criminal process, but they are a completely different portion of our office. We've got our system-based advocates through our victims assistance team. And then every day we help to refer people to defense attorneys and to civil attorneys for the different types of ways that they are being impacted by crime. So just kind of thinking about all the different ways. And then along the bottom there, you'll see a very small portion of the different community-based advocates that we work with every day, all the time. So whether it is again, like a housing resource or a culturally specific community-based organization that will help someone to truly connect. We work with different faith-based organizations, so just mental health organizations, lots of different ways that people need support throughout the process. All right. Are we forgetting anything before we move into more specifically what our office does? And kind of moving into, no, we're looking good. Okay. All right. So I'm going to try really quickly, and I don't know if it's going to work, and I hope that you all have volume to play a little clip of one of our deputy district attorneys and talking about what our office does. Somebody yell at me if you don't have volume. Or if it does nothing. All right. I am going to try and share my screen in a different way.
Oh,
and
it might be
here
going,
goes.
Kat.
Heck yeah.
I don't hear anything.
Okay.
Is there a way
So
also to make it full screen? Because on our screen, it's just like a tiny little at the bottom corner.
I'm going to try and share it in a different way. And if it doesn't work, we're going to scrap this idea completely and just keep moving. But yes, I can try a different way of doing it. And it might be that you just don't have volume. Heck yeah, share sound is an option. We're making this happen. All right. Hopefully you see my friend Jeff. I'm going to turn my volume up before getting it all right. All right.
I love being in the courtroom. I like being able to help victims on cases. I like doing important cases, doing important things. And I think that's the thing I like about my job the most is I get up in the morning. It's not the same thing every day. And I get to do something that's important and take pride in it. And that's why I love being a prosecutor.
Well, I became a prosecutor because I wanted to help people. And I stayed a prosecutor because that's what this job is. It's helping people and making the community safer and stronger and making the world a safer and better place by keeping people from becoming victims and giving justice to people who've been victimized.
So why am I a prosecutor? Coming back from my background, I didn't know a lot about criminal justice system. And when I was in law school, we had a panel of attorneys coming in and talking about what they did. And I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but one of them was a prosecutor from Lane County. And one of the things she said is that what she really enjoyed about being a prosecutor is because she was seeking justice and helping victims. And that kind of resonated with me.
When you get to meet the individuals, some of the victims or families, you get to know them, you make a connection with them. And those connections last well after the case is done. And you feel good about being able to help, at least in some small, tiny way, those folks through some really traumatic experience.
Seeing them go from being, a really scared, cowering victim in every sense of the word to somebody who felt empowered and believed and felt like their whole life was now opening up and changing because of the way that the case was handled.
We strive every day to make it better, to make the justice system work for the victims, for the witnesses, and to improve.
There's sometimes a knock on the criminal justice system, either it doesn't work or sometimes you hear the potential downsides to it. But every day here in this courthouse, every day when we're in our office here, we are protecting the community.
It's pretty amazing to have a job where every single day I come to work knowing that I can be part of a solution and I can actively do something to help better the community and better the world, better Oregon.
All right, so that is just a brief introduction to some of our friends, and back over here. Can I keep going? So the thing that I love most about that video is that that was done in like 2019, and Jeff and Rainey and Nadia are all still part of our office. And I think that says a lot about the dedication that our deputy district attorneys bring to the work that they do. And we are lucky enough to work for an office that truly believes in victim-centered and being knowledgeable about how trauma impacts individuals. And the job of the district attorney's office is prosecution of crime. So we are the entity that is legally responsible for presenting a criminal court case and for going to trial if that is the necessary steps to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that someone is responsible for the crime that they have committed. And the structure that our office takes is we have a district attorney. His name is Kevin Barton. I hope that you all can see my screen again. Cool. Yes. So Kevin is our elected official. He was elected in, 2018 and 2000, was it just this year or last year? 23 or 24. I don't remember. So he is in his second term, and the structure of our office is that he has chiefs that are responsible for kind of running the office. We have seniors that are kind of the second line of defense, and that they are assigned to different portions of the office and responsibility. Then we have our deputy district attorneys. Our deputy district attorneys are split into felony unit and misdemeanor unit, and kind of you'll see the little asterisk there that for each deputy district attorney, we have a legal specialist and a victim advocate that are assigned to those deputy district attorneys. And then kind of next in the hierarchy are our law clerks and our paralegals. So our felony unit is responsible for more high-level crime. It is anything that will garner more than 365 days worth of responsibility when it comes to outcomes. Misdemeanor crimes are anything that are 364 days or less. So kind of the difference in what the law, and again, I should say, I'm not an attorney. I just work with the district attorney's office. So don't take anything that I am saying to be the actual law. But we have the felony unit and the misdemeanor unit, and within those units, we have some dedicated teams. So we have a dedicated domestic violence team, a dedicated child abuse team, a dedicated bias or hate crimes team. We have a team that works specifically on adult sexual assault, an elder abuse team or vulnerable populations team. We have an animal abuse team. We have what's called the Measure 11 committee. And that is, there are specific crimes that occur that have been voted on by community members that say this is the minimum that we will accept in responsibility. So Measure 11s are just kind of a different type of crime. We have a cold case unit, and we have a human trafficking unit. And then we have different departments of our organization. So we have a juvenile department that works kind of across the street from our criminal department. We've got a child support enforcement unit that works also off location, a couple blocks away from the Justice Services building. And then in our Justice Services building, we have our legal specialists, we have our deputy district attorneys, we've got a digital evidence unit, we've got our data entry individuals, and we've got our victims assistance unit. So just kind of the full understanding of who our office is and how we operate. Again, going back to kind of the look of the criminal justice system and where we fit in. So within the criminal justice system, the steps that we will see are kind of the initial victim contact. So that can be law enforcement, that can be us at the district attorney's office. Then we have an open or active case. On average, our criminal cases take about a year. And so those of you that are math folks will understand that that could be that we have early case resolutions that happen within days of the criminal event occurring. And then on average, we have about 1 year. So that means that we have cases that take up to and about upwards of 2 years, sometimes to adjudicate completely. So adjudication is a final plea, whether that's a stipulated plea, which means agreed upon between the two parties. So the defense and the state agree that this is going to be the final outcome. Defendant comes ready to court for a change of plea to enter a guilty plea to this crime. And we have sentencing, or we have a hearing, a trial that occurs, and there is a group of people, jurors, whether it's a misdemeanor crime, there's 6 people, or a felony crime, there's 12 people, or the judge has the ability to be the overseer of fact for a trial. So whether it's a plea or a trial outcome, that could result in sentencing, and that would be the complete adjudication of the case. If there's restitution that has not been determined, there could still be a restitution hearing that happens. So our office is involved in the first 4 steps of that. And then after the final adjudication, we would turn the case over to advocates that work with our post-adjudication, whether through probation or parole or through Department of Corrections. And then the final step that could occur in the outcome is that there could be appeals, there could be a request for clemency or the request for expungement that occur through the defendant. If there is an appeal that occurs and that appeal is granted, it will come back through the process, and we will start again with that initial victim contact, and it will come back to our office. If those are denied, then it will remain with that post-adjudication advocate. So a very basic look at some of the things that Mackenzie was saying earlier about how we interact with individuals as victim advocates that are coming through the process. And do you want to take a second to run through, or do you want me to? You feeling good about it?
Yep. So yeah, okay, so a crime has been committed that police know about, right? Because crimes can be committed and police don't know about them at the time. But a crime's been committed in some level. There are a couple different ways in which a defendant could be arrested. So there's what's called a citation, which is almost looks a little bit like a ticket, where a citation is something that an officer writes up and says, you have an arraignment hearing on this date, and it's sometime in the future. And then that is in lieu of being arrested and taken into custody, which means that they were never arrested necessarily. They weren't booked into the Washington County Jail. It was just, hey, we acknowledge that you've committed some form of a crime, but maybe we don't need to arrest you on it. And then, or there's a crime that's been committed that police say, this is an arrestable offense. We are going to arrest you and take you to jail where you're going to get booked and spend a night in custody or something of that sort. Or let's see, is the crime occurs in police event? Is the warrant, would that be like after grand jury? I mean,
Yeah.
is that okay? Okay. So, or there's an option where a crime has been reported, but the individual or the perpetrator has not yet been arrested. So you see this often with maybe our sex abuse cases, things of that sort. A victim comes forward, reports that crime to police, and then police refer the case to our office, the district attorney's office, for review. And then we'll take that to grand jury, which is presenting the case in front of a group of jurors who then vote or deliberate whether enough information has been presented to say, yes, we can move forward with these particular charges. In the event that those charges are voted on, it's called true billed. So when the case has been true billed or charges have been true billed, then an arrest warrant will be signed for that individual's arrest. Kind of fast forwarding. Now, all of these cases, let's say somebody was either cited or arrested or a warrant has been created. The prosecuting attorney, our office, reviews the police reports that have been written, and then they make the charging decision. So whether they're looking through the reports and they think, oh, this is an assault case, but what kind? Is this an assault 1 or is this an assault 3 or assault 4 or something like that? I don't know if we really use 3s here often, but Primarily assault 1, that would be a felony case. Assault 2 would be a felony case, and then assault 4 would be more or less a misdemeanor. So that's kind of what they're doing there. And then after reviewing the case, whether if a prosecuting attorney says, nope, I don't have enough information right now to move forward with the charges, then they will no complaint that case, which is just basically them saying, we're refusing the case. I'm not charging at this time, and the defendant's good. There's no charges. Or it's being charged, and then now a defendant goes in front of a judge for that arraignment hearing that I mentioned earlier, where they're now being notified of the charges that we have after reviewing the case. We are now charging with this, which the reason why I say after we've reviewed the case is because sometimes law enforcement arrests somebody on a charge. So say, for instance, they arrest somebody for a theft 3 charge. And then after review in our office, the prosecuting attorney says, actually, this was over $1,000, therefore it's a theft 1. At the arraignment hearing is where that defendant will be notified of. Again, arraignment hearings are commonly release hearings as well. So typically the judge will address the individual's release at that time and then make a decision. Again, this is where victims' impact come into play. If they want to be heard or have their feelings or their thoughts be heard at this time, that would be the time to do so. Preliminary hearing is after, again, grand jury, we've presented a case. A preliminary hearing is almost the same thing as an arraignment hearing. It's just essentially being notified that these were the charges that were true billed at grand jury, and they could be the very same that the defendant knows about from the arraignment hearing, or they could be slightly different. And then after the arraignment hearing, they should be appointed a defense attorney or retained a defense attorney. Right now, we have a huge shortage on defense attorneys, so a lot of cases have been kind of held up until legal representation, because we will not pursue, we will not move forward with, we'll pursue, but we won't move forward with a case if a defense attorney or the defendant does not have legal representation. So those hearings will just keep getting scheduled until a defense attorney comes about. However, let's assume that an individual does have a defense attorney appointed to them. Then after the arraignment on their indictment, so again, the charges that were true billed at grand jury or the charges that were decided on for a misdemeanor case, we will then see ourselves go to a case management hearing. And then kind of like to reiterate, the defendant is still innocent until proven guilty. So the assumed plea is that the defendant is pleading not guilty throughout this process. Therefore, at the case management hearing, the defense attorney, the defendant, and then we have a prosecuting attorney who's representing the entire office there, and the defense has the opportunity to say, we're going to plead guilty or not. So at a case management hearing, that's where the defendant would have the right to choose which one do you plead. Commonly at a case management hearing, it's going to be not guilty. This isn't necessarily a defendant stating that, no, I did not do this. It's more or less for them to have a little bit more time to review. Maybe is there a plea offer coming, review their decisions, the case. It's to buy a little bit more time. And then after the case management hearing, then we will set final resolution hearing and trial dates. And a final resolution hearing is the exact same thing as a case management hearing, except it's the last hearing before trial. So if we get all the way to trial, then we're at trial. We're now subpoenaing the victims, witnesses, law enforcement officers, and then again, it's your right to have a fair, not your right, but a defendant's right to have a fair and speedy trial. So they can choose whether they want a bench trial, which would look like the judge is the one that listens in to all of the facts from both sides and makes the decision whether the individual is guilty or not, or a jury trial, which would be community members of, peer members who have been subpoenaed to be jurors for jury duty. And they're the ones that end up making the decision at the very end whether somebody's guilty or not. We also have deferred sentencing, which looks like, oh, wonderful, which looks like different types of sentencing. So when I say sentencing, it's consequences. So somebody's sentence could look like, 364 days in jail, plus 2 years of probation, plus have to take domestic violence and anger management treatment, or something of that sort. That would be a sentence. Those are their consequences. We also have, well, I guess these ones are treatment. I'll touch real quick and then I'll go kind of more into the treatment. But we also have deferred sentencing, which is programs that we offer. Oh, it's on here too, just kidding. So one could look like the domestic violence deferred sentencing, which a defendant can qualify for this type of alternate sanction if it's their first time offense. And again, it's not a serious, heinous, an assault 1 or something of that sort. Maybe it's a lower level, maybe it's like a harassment or something like that, which is still bad, but at least it gives them an opportunity to say, hey, we're going to let you kind of try this again. But the benefit of a defendant entering into one of these deferred sentencing programs is that if they complete this program successfully, then the charges that have to do with that program, so again, a harassment or a menacing charge, something of that nature, could then be dismissed upon successful completion. And in that program, it's 18 months long. They have to consistently maintain contact with, I kind of call them a probation officer, but it's the one that oversees the whole deferred sentencing and everybody that's, participants in that program. There's different types of conditions, like they have to pass a polygraph test. They have to go to like a victims impact panel. So they have to listen into other people who have been victimized of domestic violence and listen into how their situation has impacted them. They have to go through just various different treatment courses, things of that sort. And then again, upon successful completion, the benefit for them is that, one, they've learned new tools in their toolbox, so that hopefully they realize that my behavior was not appropriate and it needs to change for the future. And then also that the charge can then be dismissed. So we have that for domestic violence. We have that for veterans. So those who have active duty or retired military members can qualify for veterans treatment court, which is kind of similar, but specific to veterans who have, who their active duty, individuals whose active duty have correlated with them committing offenses. So for instance, somebody going to war, coming home, developing PTSD, which then in turns maybe leads to them having some form of a substance abuse and then committing thefts. That would be a qualifying, or could be a qualifying factor for veterans court, just some type of correlation between the two. And then we have different treatment opportunities, treatment packages is what they're called, which typically is a part of plea agreements. It's also can be a part of sentencing. But again, it's a way for not just our office to be punitive and say, hey, just go straight to jail. But again, opportunities for them to get assistance and aid in areas where maybe they're lacking. So if they're, struggling with mental health, we have various different mental health treatment packages that, a bunch of conditions that they have to meet in order to hopefully lower their recidivism rates, which recidivism rates meaning that they're not going to be committing the same crimes over and over again. And just and things of that sort. Let's see. Am I missing anything?
I think you are good. Yep.
Okay.
So who we are and how we play into this. So victims assistance is a very specific part of the DA's office, and our job is to help victims of crime navigate. So defendants have defense attorneys. The state is represented by a deputy district attorney, and our office employs victim advocates to help anyone who's been victimized by crimes. The things that we are responsible for doing are notifying people of all of the court events and making sure that they know what their statutory rights are. We help them to have a physical support system while they are navigating the process. We help them to know when court dates are happening, to have someone to go to court with them, to explain what all of the different court hearings look like and what their role is and how they are able to engage. Our job is to be a liaison between the deputy district attorney, between the court staff, between the probation officer, so that the victim has the ability to connect with each of those different entities in a seamless way. And we have the ability to help people to connect with community resources. We have the ability to help people connect with funding to make sure that they have the ability to know what their self-determined needs are and have the ability to do that in accessible ways. So we work with people from all different parts of the community. So part of our job is creating equity and creating access for individuals, whether that means helping them to have interpreters or helping them to have different accessibility equipment to be able to be functional in the courtroom. And then we help them throughout the process to emotionally have the ability to safety plan, to do crisis intervention, and to have support. So some of my coworkers look like this. We have some individuals who work mostly in our administrative stance. We have individuals who work more on our generalist team of advocates, and some individuals who work more with interpersonal survivors of violence. And then we have individuals who work on our restitution team. So I am going to skip our video, but I am going to say, please take time to watch our video of why it is so cool to work with our team. It kind of walks you through what it looks like to be an advocate, but I want to take time to focus on why it is important and why we are hopeful that you might spend some time working with our office. We know that you're in the process of figuring out kind of what your trajectory looks like, and we have the ability to help you to gain experience, professional experience. We are a very professional office. We function and have the ability for you to create a network, whether you know that you want to be an advocate or you just want the opportunity to see what it looks like to work in the criminal justice field. We have the ability to help you build skills and to have the ability to introduce yourself in a professional fashion to those individuals that you want to have the ability to have a support system from. We can help you to have things to put on your resume, whether you are applying for college or applying for jobs in the future, to be able to say, I worked for a year with this organization is a very important way to be able to bolster your resume or CV. And then we will help you to have a resource for a reference, the ability to say there are people that I worked with in this professional setting that vouch for the work that I have done. We have a mentor program within our internship possibilities, and we have the ability for you to connect with different people to help you to learn what it looks like to be an advocate. So, just so that you have the ability to see, and I know we are running short on time, but oh crap, I forgot to update this one, and sorry for the words. Fall 2024 is our next offering for our volunteer and intern training, but it is a 40-hour training program, and it will help you to have the ability to take those skills into all the different ways that you can impact the criminal justice system. And then if you don't think that the training is for you, we are always looking for people to put together donation drives for us. We have people who are in need at all points in time. So whether it is that you have the ability to help us do a donation drive or just spread the word that we need donations, we are a grant funded organization. So we may work for the district attorney's office, but we are grant funded. And we have a lot of people who don't have access to food or to warm clothes or to hygiene products. So any way that you can help out. And last, just to say, April is a month of awareness. It is Child Abuse Awareness Month. It is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. It is Crime Victims' Rights Week. So just know that there are a lot of different events that are happening in the community right now. If you have interest in engaging, please reach out to our office so that we can get you some more information. And then always my last slide is, in case you are in need of assistance, I am hopeful that this slide is going to be distributed so that you have the ability to just know that there are resources out in the community. We know that crime victims are everyone, from children through elders, and that there are different ways that you and your family may be being affected by crime at this point in time. So please let us know if there is a way we can be a support to you. Thank you so much. And I apologize for running right up to the minute.
Nope, you're good. And just before we go, can you talk a little bit about like what the skills and requirements are for this career path? That way for students who are in high school and thinking that this is something that they want to pursue, what are the education requirements, the skills that are needed, stuff that they can do in high school, age requirements, kind of talk a little bit about what that stuff is.
Yep. So we do have an age requirement for being with individuals of 18, but we do accept individuals that are 17 to go through our training process. So if you are at the cusp of turning 18 over the next year, we would love for you to go through the training process. The skills that we are hopeful that you are going to bring are, we need individuals who understand how to be active listeners, who have the ability to want to be someone who can be kind of the calm in the storm. So understanding that people are going to be affected by trauma and that it is our role to be part of that experience of trauma while being the individual there to help navigate what that crisis looks like. We are very big on organizational skills. So every day looks very different in the criminal justice system. You have to be able to refocus and to be organized to a place of being able to be functional. So having the ability to read through case summaries and know what court events look like and take the initiative to be prepared for what it's going to look like to be with victims. It is a hands-on experience. And so we do need individuals who understand emotional intelligence and have the ability to provide some support when it comes to crisis intervention. So we, again, will do 40 hours of training, and then we will do onboarding, which is shadowing and the ability to watch our advocates do the work, and then the ability to be led while you are shadowing, so that you have the ability to do the speaking and have someone standing behind you to help correct or to provide support as you go along. So there is a good amount of training that goes into the work that we do, but we are hopeful that you will come prepared to know that this is an opportunity where you will have to utilize things like crisis intervention skills and the ability to think on your feet and do some safety planning and support.
Thank you. And are there any education requirements to be a victim's advocate or college programs or, that you would suggest, or this is something they can, go straight into the internship out of high school without having to go to college? So it's kind of that second option of like being, if you don't necessarily want to go to college right now, maybe later down the road, but this is a way to get into the criminal justice program and the careers within that.
Yep, both of those options. So if you are not on a career trajectory of going to a 2 or 4 year college, this is an opportunity to do some volunteerism in the community that will help to build your CV and to help you to have professional skills. If you do have the trajectory that you're going into a 2 or 4 year college, it makes you so that you have the ability to look a little bit more competitive in those applications if you have provided service in volunteerism. And there's the ability to take that volunteerism and turn it into an internship so that maybe you have the ground level skills and you throughout your high school and maybe gap year did some volunteerism, and then you are applying to a program and you know that you are going to have to do a 1-year internship as part of that program, and you already have this network created where you can either work with our office or you can see where within the rest of the criminal justice system suits you a little bit differently.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for doing this. And students, just before you go, I know you guys are short on time because you have classes. I am just going to share that QR code for the evaluation one more time. The evaluation is going to just show that you attended today's event and that you were here. You can give us